Greetings, friends. Welcome to the Pin Tool Podcast. My name is Al Wayman, owner of Creek Road Pottery in Laceyville, Pennsylvania, next to the cold Tuscarora Creek. Pull up a chair around the wheel as we discuss topics concerning the art and craft of pottery, good books, storytelling, marketing, and creating work that matters for folks who care. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the Pin Tool Podcast. My name is Al Wayman, and I'm here at Creek Road Pottery next to the cold Tuscarora Creek. The creek is running really cold. The rain has come, and it's been cold with the snow melt, and it's roaring a medium roar. So that means it's not overflowing, but it's full now. Usually in the summer months, it gets kind of low here, but it sounds beautiful down back of the house. So what I've been up to, a lot of life updates. I got to travel up to Greenwich, New York, and was able to celebrate with my nephew his achievement of becoming Eagle Scout. So I'm a very proud uncle of him. And over at the Homestead Journey podcast, you can hear more about that. My brother-in-law made up a wonderful dinner of pulled pork and all kinds of things. And it turned out beautiful. It was a beautiful ceremony. And so I really had a good time enjoying that. So congratulations to my nephew, Brian J. I feel old when I seen him do that. He's a senior in school now. I used to play cars with him not too long ago on the floor in trains, right? And they grow up so fast, and it just makes you feel a little bit old. So anyways, gardens, people are starting to think about their gardens. My wife's got the seed book. She's going to buy corners to put in some beds. She wants 2 newer beds next to the grow bags that we had last year. We put in grow bags because, well, we live on rocky soil, and you can't even dig into the grass without hitting rocks. So, being that we live on top of a stone quarry, it feels like sometimes, we're going to put in some raised beds, and she has marked out a bunch of seeds that she wants to get and send away for us so that we can start planting when that time comes. We'll have to get a truckload of fill to put in there, some soil, and we'll need to refill our grow bags. They did pretty decent last year. I thought the rabbits and birds would get into those grow bags, but they didn't seem to bother it. And we had some nice lettuce for salads and some beets and a few other smaller things just to try a garden here at Creek Road Pottery. So that was kind of nice. So the spring show went pretty decent. I was really worried because I was distracted by some other things, and I didn't get out in front of it enough to promote it. And I never take my customers for granted at all. And I usually like to inform them of what I have here, let them see me make the work, and show them when it comes out of the kiln. So I was late on doing that, and I felt terrible about it. But things worked out. I was able to get some really nice bowls and shave bowls out and some baking dishes, and folks showed up, even though it was muddy, rainy, and it was a little bit of snow, and it was cold. I really appreciate it, and I'm very humbled by that. And for the weeks leading up to this show, I was really worried. And I had cry parties and violins following me around. But when I look back, because I thought the whole thing was going to be a disaster. That's just the way I am. When I look back to last year, I did about the same in revenue. So I really appreciate the community and the people that come out to support the pottery and handmade, and it was amazing. So I had a really fun time seeing my neighbors come down got to try some baked goods. So I make deals with some folks. If they bring me baked goods, right, give them a certain percentage off on the old pots and do a nice little even trade, right? So that's always kind of nice. Carol Johnson, she got her prized tomato plants started. I overheard them talking down at the Right Choice restaurant. She's always big on that. She gets started growing tomatoes early so that she can enter them into the fair. She's got the championship for the last 6 years now, going for year 7. 7's the holy number, so she wants to be sure to get that. So, being that we're talking about spring and seeds, we're going to be discussing the new book by Rick Rubin, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And Rick Rubin, if you don't know him, is a music producer, worked with Johnny Cash, Tom Petty, the Heartbreakers. Great guy. And he has a lot of great things to say about the creative process. And we're going to talk about a section in that book that he comments on seeds. So if you want to come down to the studio, today we're going to be making mugs. I owe the coffee shop some mugs. They notified me in an email that they were low out there in Towanda, PA. So I'll be making some mugs for them. It's a beautiful day, and eventually what I'd like to do is cart the wheel outside, right? So we all can sit outside around the wheel and talk about art. So grab a chair, and I'll meet you down there in the studio. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the studio. Pull up a chair around the wheel. Maybe some folks could slide down and let you sit there. There's plenty of room here. Before we toss some mugs, I wanted to read a little section of Rick Rubin's book, A Creative Act, A Way of Being. And this is on page 143. Friends, if you haven't gotten this book, I would encourage you to do so. There's a lot of great stuff in this. I read it twice already. Maybe I should have only read it once and worked on my spring show. But it was such a good book. I went through it twice. And it's written in a way that there's little bits of ideas in lots of chapters. So it doesn't take long to get through a chapter, and then it ends, and you can think about it a bit, right? So before I start up the wheel here, before I start up the treadle wheel, I'm gonna read this section on page 143. Talks about seeds because it's spring, and artists collect seeds. In the first phase of the creative process, we are to be completely open, collecting anything we find of interest. We can call this the seed phase. We're searching for potential starting points that with love and care can grow into something beautiful. At this stage, we are not comparing them to find the best seeds. We're simply gathering them. A seed for a song could be a phrase, a melody, a bass line, or a rhythmic feel. For a written piece, it may be a sentence, a character sketch, a setting, a thesis, or a plot point. For a structure, a shape, a material choice, a function, or the natural properties of a location. And for a business, it could be a common inconvenience, a social need, a technical advancement, or a personal interest. Collecting seeds typically doesn't involve tremendous amount of effort. It's more of a receiving of a transmission, a noticing. As if catching a fish, we walk to the water, bait the hook, cast the line, and patiently wait. We cannot control the fish, only the presence of our line. The artist casts a line to the universe. We don't get to choose when a noticing or inspiration comes. We can only be there to receive it. As with meditation, our engagement in the process is what allows collecting seeds is the best approach with active awareness and boundless curiosity. It cannot be muscled through. Perhaps it can be willed. So, that's out of Rick Rubin's book, page 143 and 144. the creative act a way of being. So let's start up the wheel here. We'll get some mugs tossing, and we'll talk about ways in which we collect seeds, and just think about how we collect our ideas. This is a great season to do that in. I know that a lot of artists are getting work up for the summer shows, but there's usually a lull. And I usually do my seed collecting right after the Christmas show up until March. And where I collect all my seeds, I put them in a sketchbook. So let's get throwing here, and we'll start talking about this. So there's ways to collect seeds. A lot of times you might call it inspiration, but I really don't think about inspiration in a way that most people do, because I don't believe inspiration is a thing that you need to wait for, right? Life's too short to wait. I believe that inspiration comes from actually starting. So where I get my inspiration from is I read, I might visit family, I might spend time in nature, and I might even take a break from being creative and just work my job in the paper factory. But all those things can lead to important ideas and maybe get you away from the work that you was already doing to come back and look at it in a different. So maybe you had a bowl of soup out there in the kitchen, and you could have been using that bowl that you made by your own hand on the pottery wheel, and you fired that out 2 years ago, but you may notice something about that and how beautiful it looks after you've been away for a little while. So it's good to back off some also. So one thing that you should never do is, and Rick Rubin talks about this later in this chapter, is form conclusions about the value of the potential of your seed and what it can grow into. So rather than thinking that or expecting that every seed you have is going to sprout into something awesome, plant all the seeds, or choose to plant different seeds and see which ones sprout, and see which ones take root and grow. And I guess like in the initial stage, if you have expectations of what that seed should grow into, you may block yourself off from more interesting possibilities that can come about. And as things change, you should let that change and welcome that change happen. And what I just said there was a little bit confusing, but a lot of times we may try to correct ourselves and correct mistakes and correct the route that the seed is growing or where the roots are going. We should just let them sprout and see what happens, and accept that and use that as an idea of more interesting possibilities. And another thing is placing too much emphasis on your seed or dismissing it prematurely. You might have ideas that you might think, well, this really needs to grow because I got this show coming up. And this is a technique that I really wanted to try, and you really push that seed. Can't muscle seeds, friends. You need to let them grow naturally, and when you do, a lot more interesting things will come about for you, and good things will come about for you that folks will enjoy, and maybe you will enjoy as you make. Also, you cannot interfere with the making process and even inserting yourself too much into that, right? Maybe just let it grow, do what you do, and don't take shortcuts. Don't be crossing items off too quickly. Don't uproot your seeds that are sprouting. Leave them in your sketchbook, right? And maybe you can go back to them, because sometimes I've gone back to things maybe 2 or 3 years ago in my sketchbook, to my little seed packet, right? And to see what I can get sprouting, even though initially I thought maybe it was a bad idea. So you want to collect as many seeds as you can, because the more seeds that you have to work from, the more choices you have and the more possibilities you have. And I usually do this, as I said, in my sketchbook, and I thumb through my sketchbook quite often. And if seed number 25 speaks to me, I may pull that out and water that a little bit more and see where it goes. And if it wants to grow a branch off, I let that happen too. As long as you know there's a little bit of pruning for what you want to do, but at the same time, don't get too happy pruning and training and inserting yourself on it too much. For example, I would have never thought of putting wood into the kiln and trying to control that process. I kind of let it happen naturally, and things worked out really nicely, and I'm getting some really interesting things by letting that seed grow. So you need to water your seeds, right? If they're just sitting in the sketchbook and you never go through that sketchbook every now and again, pull out a packet and start growing them and watering them, they'll just be that. They'll just be seeds that you're storing in a sketchbook. You have them and they're good, but maybe they're not producing because you never took the time to water them, right? So get them watered, get your sprinkling can out, and if you've collected hundreds of seeds, you're gonna have a better time and an easier time. Also, try not to make assumptions. Like I talked about this earlier. Like, you might have this terrible idea, and you might automatically assume not to do that. You might automatically assume not to do that for a host of reasons. Like maybe you don't have the skill to do this particular project, or the technique, like you're not really sure about, or you don't want to mess with anything that's outside of the norm for your work style. But I would suggest at least a couple times a year, a couple times a month, trying something new, and you'll be surprised what you can grow if you don't make assumptions about which seeds are better than other, right? Just start watering it, see where it grows, and if it sprouts, and if you have time, keep watering it and just watch the project grow. And try not to get in the way, like I was saying before. And as it grows, it can morph into something really interesting. And maybe some of your finest work comes from a seed that you watered, that you took a chance on, that originally you made assumptions about, and it just blossomed into something really amazing at the end of the season. So, once you get all your garden planted, right, it's bigger than us. And once we do our part in watering our seeds, after collecting them, seeing which ones sprout, and growing them, we can then be happy about what fruits we produce and maybe show it to others and share it with the world. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully everyone's having a really good spring, and I'm looking forward to the spring shows, and I'm kind of hoping that things go well. I have a bunch of things that are coming up really quick, and I need lots of pots for it. It's going to be a really busy season this summer. Some new things that I'm working. So with that, be well, take care of yourselves and each other, and happy potting.